Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's your old pal Drew. In this video, what I thought I would do is share with you my fantastic experience seeing the mighty Cannibal Corpse and the mighty Mayhem on their 2023 North American tour. I took my lovely wife to see a Cannibal Corpse. She's not particularly a metal fan, but she has seen Nile before and some other bands. She was more than willing to check the show out with me, so thank you, Courtney, for coming along with me. I will also mention that this was payback because earlier this summer I had to go see Beyonce, and I'm not particularly a Beyonce fan, but I had a great time at the show. So I don't know, maybe go see a band or artist that you normally wouldn't see and check it out and have a good time. I also wanted to apologize to you guys for the way my voice sounds in this video. I've been doing some vocal recording recently for an up-and-coming record that I'm working on, and I was also screaming my head off at the show, having a great time, so that's why my voice sounds the way that it does. I'm also getting pummeled on the daily with allergies, so all of that is kind of coming together, and that's why my voice sounds the way that it does, so my apologies. So Cannibal Corpse and their mighty tour rolled through town this past Friday, September 22nd, to Marathon Music Works. It's a very old historic building that they've turned into a music venue. It's one of my favorite music venues. They have a lot of metal shows there. It's a great time. There's a bar in any direction that you can find, which is also nice. And a huge shout out to the staff at Marathon for putting up with all of us metalheads. They do a great job there. They're very kind people. Anybody that works there, I've just never had a bad experience with anyone that works at Marathon. So huge kudos to you guys. Thank you so much. So this was actually my first time seeing Cannibal Corpse. I've been a fan of the band since probably 2009. You know, I had heard about them as a child, like growing up, going over to friends' houses, seeing their Cannibal Corpse cassette tapes and just having the images burned into my skull. That was amazing. But the first record that I really connected with Cannibal Corpse was Evisceration Plague, which I think goes back to 2009. Lots of great songs on that record. It was produced by Rutan, who's now in the band, Eric Rutan. My favorite song from that record is To Decompose, and I've got a lot of good memories just thrashing around in my car with my friends, jamming the hell out to that song. So thank you, Cannibal Corpse, for making that record, but the new stuff is killer as well. So we got to the show pretty much right when it started, around 6:30, and unfortunately we had to wait in line, which caused us to miss maybe 15 minutes of Blood Incantation's set. So we got in right as they were playing, and they sounded phenomenal. Lots of great guitar solos, very precise riffing, and I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with their discography, but the stuff that I've heard I've really enjoyed, and I'm going to need to check out more of their music. But I talked to my buddy Zan, and he said they played like some 18-minute epic song like right away when they first took the stage, so that is sick. They sounded great. Honestly, just as good as any other band on the tour. Like, usually the opening band doesn't sound quite as good. Maybe the mixing is not quite done as well, but whoever was mixing for them did a phenomenal job, and I thought it was spot on. So huge shout out to the Blood Incantation crew and the band members. You guys sound amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next time you come to town. Shortly after they were done, I think it was a pretty quick set change, maybe 15 minutes, Gorguts took the stage. Gorguts has been on something of a hiatus for the last 6 years. I believe they played a show last spring in April at this Pennsylvania Beer Fest for Decibel Magazine. There's some kind of connection there. But that was, I believe, Gorguts' first show in 6 years. They have been a staple death metal band since the 1990s. They sounded incredible. That's why you guys need to go to this tour. Every single band on this tour totally smashes. The lead vocalist and guitar player had two Ampeg VH140Cs on stage, and I got to hear those in all of their glory. It sounded insane. Their drummer, you know, had this giant gray beard, long gray hair, and is just back there just playing the most insane stuff on the drum kit. I was just blown away by what these guys can do in their 50s, and there will be more on that later, because pretty much every member of every band, with the exception of Blood Incantation, is probably over the age of 45. These guys are playing the most technical, brutal metal music that there is into their old age, and I just think that's awesome, and I hope that one day I can be an old dad up on stage riffing as hard as they are. So I just wanted to say welcome back, Goreguts, to the metal scene. It's a better place now that you're here, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys anytime you come to Nashville. After Goreguts, things got a lot darker because Mayhem took the stage. And I also wanted to say I've never seen Mayhem before live. I know they toured last year with Watain. This was a very special experience. To see a true black metal band play on stage was something actually quite frightening for people in the United States. So you Europeans out there that may be watching this, you guys are kind of spoiled. You get all the good black metal and death metal over there in Northern Europe and really any part of Europe. But in the United States, I consider it to be very special to see a European metal band come and play for us. It's something that I just think is awesome. The other thing that was really cool was before they started to play, I got to see one of my childhood buddies, Brian Lee, is the drum tech for Hellhammer, which is crazy. It's just mind-blowing that that's what he does. But Brian is a fantastic drummer in his own right. He has a metal band that he plays in now called Art of the Flesh in the Chicago area. If you're in that area, go see them. They freaking rip. Brian is a drum guru. He knows everything there is to know about drum hardware, cymbals, drums, and he is something of an oracle in regards to drum gear, and that's why he's Hellhammer's drum tech. And so it was kind of cool to see him walk out on stage and before they started and just kind of tighten everything, make sure everything was perfect around the drum set. The other thing I wanted to add is that Hellhammer's drum set is enormous. It's one of the biggest drum sets that I've seen. That's another thing that I love about Mayhem, is that it's just, you've got that old school stage setup, that old school giant drum kit. The only drum kit that I've seen that big on stage before was probably Mike Portnoy's from Dream Theater, Mike Mangini, or the drummer from Megadeth that I saw like 10 years ago. Those are probably the biggest drum sets that I've seen. But I just wanted to say huge shout out to Brian for setting that drum set up every night of this tour. And the other thing I wanted to say is check out the tour dates, guys. If this tour is coming to a city near you, you need to see this if you're a metalhead Cannibal Corpse fan. Even if you're not that into Mayhem or something, you need to witness what these guys do on stage because it is astounding. The other thing I wanted to say is that it was the first time I felt really scared watching a band. Seeing Attila on stage hold a human skull and wave around human bones, which I can only presume that those bones are real. Maybe they're not. I can't imagine a guy like Attila bringing fake human bones on stage, but him waving around a human head while singing their songs, it was just astounding. The other thing I wanted to say is that their guitar players were just phenomenal as well. Telok and Ghoul, they look identical on stage, and it adds this sort of symmetrical kind of appearance to what they do on stage. And then of course you've got Necro Butcher with his very unique stage presence, just kind of lurking around, bringing the low end. And anytime there was a bass break in the song, you got to hear his just very unique punishing bass tone. You had perfectly tuned low end with that crispy top end string attack. And then the other thing I wanted to say is Telok and Ghoul, when you heard their guitars on their own, they sounded quite bad in my opinion. They sounded really harsh, like they had the presence and the treble cranked on their PV 5150s like all the way. That's what it sounded like to me. But once you heard the whole band playing together, it sounded beautiful. It sounded perfect, like perfect black metal, that is. And I think that was one of the most impressive parts of seeing Mayhem was their mix, their overall mix. I could hear every little cymbal that was being hit. I could hear the guitars. I could hear the bass on its own. And then Attila has a very flexible vocal range where he does a variety of different things with his voice. I could hear all of that stuff in the mix. So another huge shout out to their mix engineer for Mayhem, because I could hear everything. Even as kind of a studio nerd, I could hear all of that stuff, and I greatly appreciate that. So once again, if you have the opportunity to see this tour, you do not want to miss it, because you get the best death metal band of all time, Cannibal Corpse, and the best, most storied black metal band in one roof, okay? And I think that's a very special thing for a metal fan, that these are two styles of metal that were sort of polar opposites for a while. Like, the fan bases were different and people sort of didn't like each other in those scenes. Like, black metal people didn't like death metalers, and death metalers didn't like black metal guys. But in these times that we live in now, it's all metal, it's all good, it's all brutal, it's all awesome. And if you are a fan of metal at all, you need to see this tour. Okay, last but not least, the mighty Cannibal Corpse. I was totally blown away seeing them. They sounded a little bit louder, I want to say, maybe than the other bands, and more full. And it could be because of the sheer amount of cabinets on stage, the speaker cabinets and the Mesa Boogie rectifiers that they use. They just sounded nuts, like a wall of sound that's just coming at you, and you're just getting punched in the face by their sound. In addition to that, you have Corpse Grinder bringing those guttural vocals that are just constant and powerful. The amount of power that comes out of that man's voice is insane. His signature stage move, the neck, where he's just swinging his hair around, he's windmilling his head. It looks like his head is about to fall off of his body, but he just puts on such a great show, and he interacts with the crowd so well. And I think that just shows the type of person that he is. I think he just loves people. I don't think he's certainly not a judgmental person at all, and he's very sure of who he is at this point in his life. He is the neck. He is brutal. He's freaking George Fisher Corpse Grinder, and I'm so thankful that I got to see this guy do what he does. I'm grateful that this band exists and that this music exists. I'm super stoked that I got to see Eric Rutan play guitar, and really just every member of Cannibal Corpse just do their thing. They've been such a consistent band over the years, putting out record after record of just punishingly brutal and awesome music that is edgy and violent, and that pushes the boundaries of what is, you know, acceptable in music. And I just appreciate these guys so much for that. And I think my most favorite part from this show was when Cannibal Corpse was done with their set. The lights came on, and I looked around at the people that I was standing next to for the back half of the set, and we all kind of just laughed and smiled at each other and said, like, hell yeah, and like high-fived each other. I just think that that is the most special thing about this genre of music, is that it doesn't matter what background you come from. It doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, or whatever you'd like to be. You can go to a show, and if you love this music and you care about it and you're there, you will be accepted. Okay, anybody is accepted at these shows, and I think that I like that. Okay, there's no performative thing. There's nothing even remotely that comes to mind where, like, you're not cool enough to be here or anything like that. My wife is a gospel singer, for crying out loud, and she felt safe at this show, and I think that's special. Now, I will say not every metal show that I've been to is like this, but it certainly is like this with Cannibal Corpse, and I appreciate the heck out of those guys for sort of creating that space. And I don't know if every show on this tour will be like that. I hope that there's no violence or fights or anything bad that happens at these shows. But I think that that is sort of a common misconception with death metal, is like, oh, you go to a death metal show, you're gonna get stabbed, or you're gonna get your eyes gouged out, or someone's gonna hit you in the head. But I've been to so many death metal shows now, and that's never happened, okay? Now, I have been to some violent hardcore shows, and usually people aren't intentionally hurting each other. They're just excited about the music, and they're jumping up and down and moshing and crowd surfing, and you know, certainly people can get hurt doing that, and then fights can break out. I've never been to a death metal show and seen that happen. To me, that is why I love this genre of music, and I like this style of metal, is that you can be anybody and you can be accepted at these shows. So guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. Go see this tour if you can, and maybe in the comments let me know your favorite death metal show that you've been to. Has there been a tour that's come through your town recently that you really had a great time at? And you know, anything you want to talk about that I mentioned in this video, let's talk about it in the comments, guys. And thank you so much for watching. Like this video, subscribe to this channel if you like what I'm doing here, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.